act as if defeat was out of the question.
He was an authoritative winner. He set the bar so high as a 2-year-old.
Champion 2-year-old, Irish Guineas winner, ran super race in the Eclipse.
He's got the constitution of a rhinoceros, he just loves it.
Native Trail hits the lead.
Native Trail has won the superlative.
Native Trail is going to stay unpicked.
And welcome to our favorite segment, one of our favorite segments. It's News You Can Use with Emma Berry, the European editor of the TDN. Emma, it's been a little while. How has your winter been, and what's new?
Well, it's been soggy and freezing, but I'm happy to say the sun is shining now. And I had a good long walk down Newmarket's Rolling Mile on Sunday, and I'm starting to feel in classic mood.
Well, okay, it's interesting you bring that up because one of the things we want to talk about, we all know how the American horses are prepared for the classics. Most of them have 2, some have 3 preps starting in March, maybe a little bit earlier to get them geared up for peak effort. You have also the classics coming up in England, Ireland, and France. How do the trainers overseas, how do they prepare their horses?
It's really kind of varied, actually, depending on the trainer, and pretty different, as you say, to the American build-up, where you've got a much clearer idea already of the road leading in to Churchill Downs. But here we tend to see less of the classic prospects in the build-up. Some go straight into the 2,000 Guineas, for example, the first classic on the first weekend of May, without having run at 3. I mean, they obviously have been running at 2. And there's been a rise now in trainers using the all-weather surfaces through the winter a little bit more. And we had a very unusual situation last year when Notable Speech won the 2,000 Guineas. He'd run 3 times in January and through on to May, just at Kempton on the all-weather. And we hadn't seen him as a 2-year-old. And I think it's the first time a 2,000 Guineas winner had ever not run on the turf first. So that's being used a bit more often. And I think we've seen Charlie Appleby this winter as well trying a similar approach with Opera Ballo, who looks a very exciting colt. He's by Gayeth. He's from the first crop of Gayeth. And he's won twice at Kempton so far. He's only run twice. He was a TDN Rising Star on his debut, won very impressively. And, he's right up there in the betting for the Guineas and for the Derby. So, he's one that's sort of Charlie's trying that favoured approach, but Charlie also had the European champion 2-year-old of last year, Shadow of Light, who's already a dual Group 1 winner at 2. I don't know whether he'll appear in one of the more formal trials, which kind of start from mid-April, or I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe just has a racecourse gallop and comes straight into the 2,000 Guineas. But Charlie Appleby's rather spoiled for choice at the moment. I mean, obviously there are plenty of other big stables with big entries for these classics, but we saw Ruling Court as well on Saturday in Maidan, winning very impressively the Jumeirah 2,000 Guineas. He's by Justify, and again, he's going to be a very interesting horse to follow when he's back in England in the spring.
So, Emma, after the 2,000 Guineas over there, the 3-year-old focus then shifts, of course, to the Epsom Derby. The entries for the Epsom Derby are out. They were released last week. We would call them nominations. You call them entries. Who is the favorite right now for the Epsom Derby, and what are some of your thoughts on the entries?
Well, it won't surprise you to hear that Aidan O'Brien, the winning most trainer at the Derby, has the favourites, the Lion in Winter. He's by See the Stars, who obviously was a Derby winner himself. And the Lion in Winter we actually haven't seen since last August when he won the Acomb Stakes at York, but he's still at the head of the betting market for the 2,000 Guineas and the Derby. Aidan O'Brien has the highest number of entries once again for the Derby. I think he's got 22 of the 90 entries. So we'll see as things progress over the next months, how that shakes down and which horses he ends up running. He often has more than one runner in that race, as we know. But we've also Rafe Beckett. We saw him winning at the Breeders' Cup last November with Starlust. He's got a notable high number of entries in the Derby this year. I think he's got 12 colts in there, and it's going to be also very interesting to see how Wootton Bassett fares, because he, of the sires with Derby horses. He's got the most. I think he's got about 12 colts entered. So I'm sure Coolmore will be hoping to have one of his good. He had 4, I think, Group 1 winning 2-year-olds last year. To see one of those step forward and win a classic will be high on their list of wish list, if we should say, for next year. And I was just actually going to note a couple of new trainer names that might not be so familiar to American listeners. Rafael Freire is a Brazilian trainer based here in Newmarket, and he's literally just moved in this weekend to Sir Michael Stout's very famous yard, Freemason Lodge, which was bought by Ammo Racing over the winter. Ammo Racing made a really big splash at the yearling sales last October, and they're going to have a lot of very well-bred, very exciting horses to follow. And Raphael's a young man who's been training for a few years. He has a Derby entry, as does James Owen, another trainer who's making quite a big splash here as well at the moment. He's got 4, I think, horses entered. He's going to be someone to watch out for. He's also a very good jumps trainer. He could make a big splash next week at Cheltenham at the festival. But he's also got some notably well-bred horses for the Gredley family. So they're going to be. It might be a bit of a shake-up to the sort of regular classic order this year, with some new names coming to the fore.
Emma, you mentioned Aidan O'Brien with a big stable coming in from Ireland. You mentioned Charlie Appleby from the UK. What about France? I understand there's some French horses, though, that also deserve a second look or are also right in the thick of things.
Yes, there's one colt who really came out and made everyone sit up and take note a couple of weeks ago. It's called Tito Mo Sen, and he's actually a half-brother by Uncle Mo, the late Uncle Mo, sadly now. He's a half-brother to Ramatuelle, who I'm sure people will remember came over to Del Mar last November, but was scratched, unfortunately, from the Breeders' Cup. But she's a Group 1 winner for Christopher Head, bred by Guarda Centurion. And now her younger half-brother is actually in training with Victoria Head, who is Christopher's sister. He was made a TDN Rising Star with a very, very impressive debut. I think he won by 7 lengths on the Chantilly Poly track. He's certainly gone into a lot of notebooks and has classic entries for Victoria. There was a lovely filly as well last week, winning for Carlos and Jan Lerner, who had their first classic victory last year with Luc de Vega in the Prix du Jockey Club. They have a filly named Godspeed she's from the first crop of Hello Youmzain, and again was a very impressive winner last week. We're going to see a lot more. The turf season's underway in a few weeks here, and yeah, they've been racing in Cannes-sur-Mer in the south of France and on the Chantilly Poly track quite a bit. We're going to start to see some nicer horses coming out in the next few weeks and get a clearer picture of what's going to be happening in the classics come May and June.
Well, Emma, I want to thank you so much for News You Can Use, brought to you by Darley. We'll be having you back soon to keep track of what's going on over in Europe, as it's an exciting part of the year for them as well. Once again, thanks, Emma.
It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.
News You Can Use is brought to you by Darley, and that brings us right to Native Trail, who does stand at Darley. Native Trail was the undefeated European champion at 2 and a classic winning miler at 3. He has 150 in-foal mares in his first book. The in-foal mares include siblings to 117 stakes horses, 20 Grade 1 winners, and 41 Grade 1 horses, namely Kind of Blue, Coronet, Pretty Pollyanna, Timepiece, Footsteps in the Sand, Harbour Law, Margot Did, and Belvoir Bay. 36 mares from that first book have already produced a stakes winner or a performer. 26 of them at group level. The Irish 2,000 Guineas winner is now covering his second crop of mares and is available at Darley for the cheap fee of €16,000.